my name is Pinky, and today I'll be chatting with actor, writer, producer Zibby Allen, who has since become fans' favorite on the Netflix series Virgin River as Brie Sheridan. Hello, Zibby. Thanks for chatting with me today.
Hi, Pinky. I love our names
Hi.
together.
Yeah, and congratulations on Virgin River reclaiming #1 spot on Netflix Top 10.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going straight to ask you more on the series as fans cannot wait to know more. And the last episode of season 4 has yet again left a cliffhanger for fans as Dawn showing up with you and especially uninvited. Can you tell us what's ahead for Brie?
Yeah, I mean, without giving too much away, I can tell you that Brie is somebody that makes good on her promises, and she's got a really strong follow through. And as we've seen in season 3 and season 4, she's really determined not to feel like a victim, even though she is a victim of a really painful sexual assault. She fights that, for better, for worse, in some ways that you might call healthy, in some ways that you might sort of go, well, this is actually like kind of a good thing, good for you, or rather unhealthy ways. I'm sorry. But yeah, so like, I think that we'll see her now that Dawn's come to her town and tracked her down. We'll see her do what she needs to do to make sure she doesn't feel a victim again to his ways.
I love the last sentence when you saw him and it was like, lawyer up. And is that what we're expecting more? Like, is the attorney side of Brie will be showing more on season 5?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, that's a side of Brie that I love too. And that last line was really satisfying to say, and I imagine it was pretty satisfying for the audience too, just to see her be able to confront him. And I know that victims of sexual assault don't always get to have that moment. But yes, I think we can expect to see her go down that road in season 5, which we're just starting to film now. So I can't give anything away, but like, you can count on Brie to do what she needs to do.
Sure. And like, speaking of Brie and the show, obviously, as said, she dealt with like heavy topics with the sexual abuse and miscarriage. With everything's happening in the States right now, how would you say it affects your role? And like personally or like professionally, like what do you have to say about that?
What a great question. No one's asked me that yet. Yeah. I'm from the United States. So it's been really shocking and painful and frightening to witness what's happening in our country politically and how that is trickling down and affecting women's lives, including my own. So it just feels that much more important to be able to carry the aspects of Brie's story and the themes in Virgin River at large around pregnancy, miscarriage, births. There are a lot of birthing themes in our show, which I'm really proud of. And then obviously sexual assault and sexuality. I mean, I am so proud that the show doesn't shy away from themes like these, and we have such strong female characters representing within these storylines. And so it just feels important. I have a deep sense of responsibility to not only do right by Brie's story, but to all my fellow women who are looking at this show and finding themselves or pieces of themselves in those storylines.
Yeah, I've read from your other interviews, you say every role that you participate has somewhat an impact in your life. Like, what about Brie? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I do. I always say like there's always something for me to learn from a role. And so often I feel like roles choose me. But I also think that roles find me because certain characters need a little bit of what I naturally have. And so I'd like to think that Brie and I sort of come together in this way where she's really tough, really determined, really strong-headed. She's in a lot of ways, I think, a lot stronger than I am in spirit. And I can pull from her strength. Like when I have to muster, those aspects from within in order to be Brie, I'm like, oh, that lives in me. And I think Brie is probably needing to borrow a little more of my softness, my vulnerability, where I wear my heart on my sleeve more, because she's really looking for love and trust and a restored sense of self and safety. And so I'd like to think that I bring that to her. And so it's just this really cool dance I get to do. And the benefit of being able to play a character over multiple seasons is to sort of evolve with her, and go on the journey with her. Yeah. So it's cool. I hope I answered that question right.
Yeah, I do too. And like on Virgin River, like, is there any behind the scenes stories that you could tell us on season 4, or like what's your most memorable or like fun moments so far?
There are so many, honestly. It's a really playful cast. You may have seen on social media, there's a lot of dancing. We play music in between scenes often. And so Alex Breckenridge, who I love, she's a girlfriend of mine. She's just an extraordinary person. She's very fun on set and loves to get down to a tune in between scenes. So there's lots of footage of us dancing. And I personally like to joke with a lot of my castmates and keep it light, especially because there's some pretty heavy topics and it's nice to offset that. Yeah. So it's hard to pick just one. I will say I am like a 13-year-old awkward teenager when it comes to fart jokes, and I cannot keep a straight face. And so once Martin Henderson, who plays my brother on the show, caught on to that. Yeah. He likes to torture me with fart jokes, and it's horrendous because I just I lose it. I cannot recover from that. I don't know where that comes from, but yeah, it's like my kryptonite.
Yeah, definitely. Like within the shooting, is there anything that took you like a long time to prepare, or like in the field, or like it takes more shots than you expected? Are there scenes like that you could share?
That's interesting. Okay, wait. So the one question was like, was there a scenario where there were more shots than I expected?
Yeah,
there's definitely one that comes to mind in terms of well, I'll just say that. The last season, so this would have been season 4. Mm-hmm. There's a scene where I show up at Brady's house after he's been released on bail, and at first he doesn't let me in, and then we can't resist each other, and we make out from the doorway all the way inside his house. Yeah. I don't know why this particular scene had to be shot from every angle, but I swear we made out for like 2 hours. Like, just like past the point of sanity. And I just remember feeling like so exhausted afterward. We were just laughing because, it's hard enough to make out on camera in front of a bunch of people.
People don't get it, right? Yeah. They didn't know like you need multiple shots. Like they see one scene in the series, but then they didn't realize how many shots it takes for like the actors to do it.
Totally. That scene took forever. I mean, it's all very technical too. So it's not like, okay, now you make out and have fun for a bunch of, you know what I mean? It's super technical. I'm like, wait, what side was my head on? Where's the camera? Oh, you're blocking my light, It's a funny thing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I've heard that you love getting around nature and you like being outside. And I mean, the scenes in Virgin River are so calming and like so pretty. I'm curious, is it like that in real life? Like, is it what we are seeing? Like,
it really is. Yeah, it's as beautiful as it looks on TV, probably more so. It's so stunning. As you probably know, we film up in British Columbia and Canada. I love it here. It's so stunning. I mean, we're essentially in a rainforest, and so it's lush, and you've got the mountains and the ocean, and you've got lakes, and it's so scenic. And yes, it is that beautiful. And I find it to be really grounding as an artist to be able to be out in nature and do the work that we love to do. It's really important for me to be outside. I can get really sedentary just as Zibby, as a human being, and stay in and spend hours and hours. I mean, waste an entire day in front of my computer if I'm not careful. And so BC really lends itself to that, that touchstone that's really important for me, just as a person, for my mental health, but then also to be able to perform in nature, and just connect. It's so good.
I'm jealous of that view every time I watch it.
It is so amazing. I feel like I'm afraid of any other job after this because this just wins.
It's like spacious and everything, right? Compared to sometimes it's always like inside the studio, like
Yeah.
refined in a place.
Yes, totally. And look, don't get me wrong, what we do is a gift and it's fortunate just to be able to work. But yes, being in a cold studio for 12 hours a day is such a different thing. It requires a totally different kind of, like, we call it being actor fit, meaning, the stamina that it takes to, sustain 12-hour days. And it's a different kind of fitness when you have to be inside and work versus being outside and just take a big deep breath and look at the trees and look at the views,
Yeah.
and just, it's very connecting.
Yeah. And like so far, what's your favorite spot in the Virgin River, would you say?
Well,
Being
I just
outside.
got it. I just acquired my newest favorite spot. So my first scene, so you guys won't see it yet, but season 5, my very first day of filming on season 5, which is just a couple weeks ago, Martin Henderson, who plays my brother Jack, and I have a scene up, I think it's out in Squamish. We filmed like on the top of a mountain, essentially, and it was just breathtaking.
Nice.
I mean, I don't know that I've been to a more beautiful spot, and here I was, like, doing the very thing that I love the most in one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. So that's my new favorite spot.
Okay, that's so nice.
Yeah.
Have you been to Squamish before? I have never.
I had been once, like, I'd driven, through Squamish and stopped and done some hiking up there on the way to Whistler once.
I see.
But yeah,
I love Whistler.
oh my gosh, there's so much of BC left to see. I feel like I could be here for 20 years and not even scratch the surface. It's so stunning.
Yeah. And how's season 5 going so far? Like you guys are a few episodes in only, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's great. We have a new showrunner, Sean Patrick Sean Smith, and he is fantastic. Really grateful for all the love and fresh life they are bringing to the show, while still really honoring, like, what Virgin River is at its core. And so, yeah, I think everyone's in a really great space. Super excited about working together and working on new material. And it's really fun to start filming while season 4's come out, because we're feeling the feedback from the audience and getting all this love and feeling like it's a real call to action to, deliver strong stories that matter to people. So it's an extra motivator. I really love the timing of it this time.
Yeah, I would see that too.
Yeah.
So speaking of like relationships or in your real life, I know that you just celebrated your anniversary with your husband. Happy anniversary to you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I knew that you were opposed to marriage prior to this, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really, really curious to know what's the shift, like how did it happen? Like share us your love story.
I'll try and give you the abbreviated version.
Yeah.
I was in a very adamant place about marriage, and that I wasn't, in a lot of ways I still am. So when I met my husband, I had just applied to go to philosophy school, because I just decided I wanted, like, I don't know, I wanted to be an accredited author for this book that I had the title only for, which was Let's Call the Whole Thing Off, meaning marriage. So that's how against marriage I was. Then I was in Edinburgh, Scotland, doing a play. And my now husband, was running a Mexican restaurant just down the street from where I was performing. And I'd walk past all the time. He was a very attractive, and still is, human being. And one thing led to another. We got each other's information. And neither of us were really open for business in terms of a serious relationship. But of course, as these things go, the heart had different plans, and we just really fell for each other in a way that defied all logic, especially because I was in LA and he was in Scotland.
Yeah.
But we made it work. We were long distance for about 8 months and went back and forth. And it was only until Adam, my husband, that I've been in many relationships, but I just hadn't loved what relationships looked like, specifically marriage. I'd never had anyone model a marriage that looked attractive to me, that looked like something I wanted. I saw a lot of failed marriages. I saw a lot of resentment. I decided I didn't like what we do to each other in marriage. It's mostly set up for disappointment and hurt. And I actually think that marriage is very functions like that still. Nonetheless, Adam and I are really compatible. And for the first time ever, I was really interested in like, what could life be with this one person who I can't imagine suddenly life without. And even though I had had versions of that feeling before, there was some sort of unspoken, big, magical feeling in my gut about it. But I didn't know how to reconcile that with this like real stern philosophy about marriage and how I've been claiming I don't want that. But I guess what shifted for me in my attempt to reconcile that was I started to look at marriage, and I now do look at marriage really as a practice versus sort of this romantic notion of I'm marrying you right now and we're going to be together forever and you're going to fulfill all these things. It was more about I'm interested in what the practice of marriage over long term, over the course of my life will do to me, just similar to what the practice of, pescatarianism is, or veganism, or sobriety, or meditation practice, what that will do to me holistically, as a whole, as a being. And that way, it leaves a lot of room for my partner to evolve and be who he becomes over and over and over again without me holding him to some standard of like, well, you need to be who I married. I'm actually married to the practice.
Did he know that you were opposed to marriage at first in your relationship?
Oh yeah, I told him like date number 2. I was like, yeah, marriage is not for me, and he was like, okay. And for him, the thing is, we're both total romantics, so he always imagined he'd get married, and he heard that, and I just think one thing he's really good at is giving me lots of space to be totally who I am and not sort of take the bait and worry about what it means for him. And I think that's one of the many functions of our dynamic that make us so compatible and, able to be inside of this partnership without hanging on too tightly to who each other are at any given moment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice to know. And like, what else would you say to people who might be now opposing to marriage? Like, what would you say to the women out there who might be not trusting into relationships or having doubts about this kind of partnership? Because nowadays it's more open, right?
Yeah.
In the world, it's no longer like a very rigid frame of how people see marriage and everything. So I would like to know your view too.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'd still say marriage isn't for everybody, and to think outside of the box and really examine like what is it about the idea of marriage that appeals or doesn't appeal, and can that be okay if marriage isn't for you, and can we feel fulfilled in our lives and romantically if we're not just hanging on to this idea of the one or one person. And I think the more room we give ourselves to have it not look like what everyone else says it should look like makes us available for love in all of its forms. And to also find that sort of self-loving self-reliance that means we're okay no matter who's in your orbit. I think that the fundamental problem with relationships is that we end up resenting the other person for giving us what we aren't giving ourselves. And so if you can be always looking for ways to give yourself everything that you need, then it means you can experience love in all forms without it needing to stick around long term or be the same all the time. And I'm very excited about like what I think it's Gen Z is up to in terms of like talking about relationships and mental health and thinking outside of the box and not doing it like, my parents did it and a lot of people in my generation have done it. I think it's cool.
Right. And I want to know more of your and your husband's dynamic, because you just said he respects you a lot and give you a lot of space. What else do you think is like what else do you think makes you guys' relationship successful? Especially you just celebrated another anniversary and like from what I saw on Instagram, I just love you guys' relationship so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I mean, we genuinely adore and respect each other. And I think that we are fortunate enough to meet each other at a point in our lives where we both had a sense of self-reliance, and we had ourselves, you know what I mean, independently. And so Adam just enriches my world because I don't need him for anything. So I get to adore him. And I think we just have that. It doesn't mean that there aren't things, that come
that
up
are hard.
yeah, exactly. But I even love how we deal with it, because at the forefront really is like this deep appreciation and love for how we magically managed to find each other, from two people from two totally different continents. And, I could talk a lot about the things that we do and don't do, but at the end of the day, like, it's just a really honest connection, and our personalities and are really compatible, and it works. And that doesn't even sound that romantic, but it is. It ends up being very romantic to me. There's a kindness. Adam also, by the way, is just like kindness incarnate. I'm like a worrier. I'm angsty, but he's not super reactive to me, which is great. He is
be a calm.
Yeah, he's
like being the center of calm for you.
Super calm. Yeah, he's still. And so, like, there again, I think that speaks to the compatibility where, like, I live a very erratic life. Like, my career, there's nothing consistent about my world, basically. And so it's a lot of up and down. And even though I can manage myself pretty well, and I do that with respect to, our shared space, and I understand I impact him, he impacts me, but he's just more even. And I think that's really, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so nice. And do you have any advice for long distance couples? Because you have experienced it for 8 months with Adam.
Yeah. I think the cool thing about long distance is that it forces you to be in conversation for a lot longer and more often than sometimes we end up doing if we're just in the same neighborhood and you're hooking up and it's all that. We had to talk a lot. And because of the distance, we had to get to important topics and things that mattered to us to figure out, like, is it worth another massively expensive plane ticket to come over there? Or how are we going to rearrange our lives to be together and be in the same continent? Is it worth it? And so I think there's a lot of value in being long distance for a time. And then after that, you've got to be together. You've got to find a way to make it work, because, and I think people all over the world probably got a dose of that with COVID, right? Because we couldn't actually see each other. And so there was a lot of talking. There were a lot of new and inventive ways to connect without actually being there physically in person. And I think there's a silver lining in a lot of those circumstances.
Yeah, definitely. Like, enough of your love life. I would like to know more about your acting life. I know that, like, you have recently got a thriller movie out in the US, Lie Between Friends. And then upcoming, you're going to star in another movie, another thriller, Daughter Danger. So I would like to know, are you into thrillers before this, or like how did you end up with these roles? Like,
okay. First of all, Lies Between Friends and Daughter Danger are actually the same movie. Daughter Danger, it's confusing because Daughter Danger was the original name, and then they changed the name, and so a couple of people have thought. No, don't be sorry. A couple of people have thought that. I do love a thriller. I've been in a couple of thrillers. I like all the genres. Do you know what I mean? I get bored in just doing one genre. I really like to play and be challenged, and there's literally not a genre. I mean, I was about to say, like, there's like not a genre on television that I wouldn't want to play in. And Lies Between Friends was, it was cool. It was fun. It was different.
Like, were you into thrillers, or like, I've read somewhere that you don't really like to watch thrillers yourself? Is it true?
Oh my gosh, you've done your research. Yeah, I hate watching scary movies.
Oh my God.
I know. I'm so impressed that you. Yeah, I do not like watching scary anything. I am so easily spooked. Like, if there's a tiny noise in the house, I like pause and freeze and get freaked out. I mean, I'm the jumpiest human being, so I can't do it. But I like being in them.
But like, how does it affect you somewhere? Because you read the whole story. It's a thriller after all. So how do you combat that inside of you? Because
well, when you're doing it, when you're actually filming the thing, you're sort of behind the curtain and you see what's actually happening, all the technicals that go into it. It's the same as like, a makeout scene. It's like once you're actually doing it, there's nothing that steamy about it because it's so technical, and same with thrillers. So actually it kind of helps me shake off that first read when I'm actually in it and they're painting, the blood on the hands and you're like, oh, that's paint.
Did it make you more open to watching thrillers or still a no?
No, that's a no. That's a hard pass for me. I don't need it. Thrillers and roller coasters can just stay over there on that end of the world.
I see. That's funny. Because I would thought like maybe after you acted on it, you would be okay. Started to be okay watching thrillers?
No, I don't like it because when I watch as an audience member, I get caught up in a story pretty easily. And so I'm very easily influenced.
I see. That's all right.
Mm-hmm.
And the last question, I would like to know about your singing career. I know that you have a new album coming next. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that you called it a career. I would call it more of a hobby, but but I love it. I mean, I'll give you as condensed a version as possible, but many, many years ago, on the heels of the loss of my brother in a very tragic way, I just could not sleep. I had a really bad insomnia for like a year. And so at the time I had just acquired a ukulele randomly because I was working in a bar and this musician would always come in. And so he gave me a ukulele. So I just taught myself how to play the ukulele like in the wee hours of the night, every night, over and over again on YouTube. And around that same time, one of my best friends in the world, his name's Ian Merrigan, he's a real musician and he was learning the ukulele as well. So he would come over and plunk around with me. And I played him a song I wrote that was pretty heavy, but it was really helpful. It was like kind of the only way I could work through my feelings. And then that led to us sort of like just coming up with 5 or 6 songs kind of organically. And it was such a sacred, sweet time. The songs are really representative of that time, but it was the way Ian could be there as my friend during this sort of unspoken strange bubble, right, on the heels of a really sad loss. And so our songs are very nostalgic, very simple, obviously, because I'm not much of a musician, but I love singing, I love harmonizing, I love lyrics. And that developed into a CD, or not a CD anymore, but an album called I Love You Overall. We started playing around town, and randomly, Chris Doritas, who's a famous radio DJ and music supervisor, he ended up playing one of our songs because I met him one night. I didn't even know who he was. We were at another music venue and we got to talking, yada, yada. He asked to hear our music. I was like, oh, whatever. Here's like the raw track. It's nothing. And I didn't realize he was hosting Mornings Become Eclectic on KCRW, and he ended up playing one of our songs, and we got this sort of overnight little following, and we went on tour. And so we still play every now and again, and we are slowly working on another album, but who knows? We'll see.
I see. So what can fans expect from you ahead?
Well, we'll probably start releasing little songlets online from the new music. Virgin River Season 5 will be coming out as next year, hopefully not too far away.
Yeah, everyone's like not wait.
I know, it's so lame how long we have to wait. I mean, it's frustrating for us too. We always want it to come out so much faster, but Netflix is a big company with a big lineup, and there's so much to do in between. The one thing that people are like, why does it take so long? I just found out, and of course, I just didn't think about it. They have to dub the show in like something like 40 languages.
Oh.
Because so it makes perfect sense, but like that alone takes a long time. So there's a reason behind the time frame, but that will come eventually next year. And that's it. Other than that, I don't really know,
Yeah, sure. And that's all for me today. Thank you so much for talking with us, Zibby.
Thanks for having me, Pinky.
Thank you. And this is Pinky for Next Big Thing.